Update. Am I the a-hole for refusing to share my half of the inheritance money with my nibblings? Original post. My sister, 40F, and I, 34M, recently lost our last remaining parent. We are both devastated, but regardless, the logistics all need to be worked out. Our parents were very clear in their will that our inheritance and all property are split evenly between the two of us. It's to the tune of around $1 million. Here's where the problems start. I'm gay. I live with my partner who I'm not married to across the country from the rest of my family. My sister and her husband have 3 small kids under 11. My sister said that since it's highly unlikely I'll ever have kids, which still remains to be seen, I haven't decided that yet, and because I live a comfortable life currently, that I should take at least a quarter of my inheritance money and open bank accounts for her kids. Instead of using her own money to do that, she wants to buy a McMansion to get out of their smaller, cramped house, basically implying that her and her family need the money more than I do since they're married with kids, and I'm not. She thinks my parents were unfair when they created the will, and that I should do the right thing to make up for their mistake. Our entire family is split on the issue. My brother-in-law is obviously on my sister's side and says I'm being greedy and don't care about my nibblings' future. Our aunts and uncles and cousins all have differing opinions, with the more homophobic side of the family saying I'm being a greedy asshole. This is causing a major rift, and I'm worried that eventually she'll cut me off and won't let me have a relationship with the kids anymore. Part of me thinks maybe they do need the money more than me. Maybe I should just let the money go. Am I the a-hole? OP has offered the following explanation for why they think they might be the asshole. I told them that I want my half of the money according to my parents' will, but maybe they really need the money more than I do, and I'm being an asshole for withholding it from them since they have a family. Help keep the sub engaging. Now, for the update. Update. I talked to my sister and told her that giving her kids a quarter of my inheritance is off the table. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. I told her that the most I'm willing to do is leave her children as the heirs to my estate if I don't end up having kids of my own, but if she wants to set up accounts for them right now, it's going to have to come out of her own money. She was salty about it but begrudgingly agreed. I think showing her this thread also helped. She's not going to cut me off from her kids, and she said I was crazy to think she would ever do that. Thank you guys for helping me gain the confidence to stand my ground. Crisis averted. Story 2. Am I the a-hole for calling my mom out for not being fully honest about the reason she wants her husband to walk me down the aisle at my wedding? My wedding is coming up, and my mom has been campaigning hard for her husband, my stepdad, to be the person to walk me down the aisle. I already asked my paternal grandparents. My mom knew I was going to ask them and knew when I had. But she has not given up on the desire for me to ask her husband. The other day, she told me that it would make the most sense and she feels like he is the correct and most worthy person to walk me down the aisle. I called her out on that and said she should be more honest about why she wants him. The reason, I know, is because she knows her husband and my dad hated each other, and she believes I should have been loyal to her husband over my dad. She especially believes I should have given all the loyalty I had to my dad to her husband after I lost my dad at the age of 7. BG, my parents broke up, never married, and my mom got married to her husband when I was 2. My dad and her husband hated each other. I was always aware of the fact, but it became especially bitter for me when I was 6 and my dad was diagnosed with cancer. I don't remember a lot from that time, but I do remember my mom's husband showing up to see my dad when he was in the hospital, and I remember him yelling at my dad. I know prior to that the two were as bad as each other, and the animosity was mutual. When my dad died, I didn't automatically start to care more or feel closer to her husband. He did try, and I think part of his hatred for my dad was I was such a daddy's girl and never looked at him being in my life as having 2. I spent equal time with both my parents when dad was alive. I never got closer to my mom's husband. He was my mom's husband and my half-sibling's dad. But even though I don't remember a time where I didn't know him, I never saw him as my dad. He always hated my dad too. I heard him grumble about him over the years. Even saw him spit near a photo of my dad once. Eventually, he gave up trying and decided I wasn't worth his time, which I felt was better for everyone. But my mom hates it. She hates that he's just her husband, and I haven't embraced him as my dad. One time she said it can be so hurtful to lose to a dead man and be rejected in favor of a dead man. I asked what she meant by that, and she told me I never picked her husband over my dad. And I never let him feel like he won against him in one thing. I told her he had. He was still alive while my dad was gone. I think my mom still wants that win for her husband, especially when his hatred for my dad still burns strong. I believe my paternal grandparents are the right people to walk me. I have been close to them my entire life. My mom is mad that I called her out and tried to make her be honest. She said she was not lying and I was being rude. Am I the a-hole? Story 3. Updated. Aita for hiding my family wealth from my boyfriend? Original post. So, 17F, have been dating my boyfriend Mike, 16M, for about 3 months now. We're both juniors in high school, and everything has been going really well between us. We met through mutual friends about 8 months ago and hit it off quickly. He's funny, kind, and down to earth. We have an amazing relationship, but our financial situations are different. My family is pretty well off. Not rich, no mansions, yachts, etc. But we live in a nice house, take 1, 2 vacations per year, and I don't really have to stress about money. I only work just so I'm not sitting at home doing nothing. That being said, I've always been taught not to flaunt it, nor bring it up. We drive normal cars and live a fairly average lifestyle, even if we have more savings than others. I never talk about money with people. Mike's family doesn't have as much. He's mentioned how they struggle sometimes to pay bills and how they have to budget for everything. Because of this, he's made a few comments about rich kids being spoiled or out of touch, which is why I didn't bring up my family's situation. I didn't want him to see me differently or feel awkward about the differences between us. I don't care what his financial situation is. I love him anyway. He's seen my house and knows my parents run a business, but he doesn't know about all my parents' assets, which make a lot more money and is what keeps us comfortable. So he doesn't know how much we really have. Well, recently, Mike and I had dinner with my family, along with cousins. We all sat down and talked about traveling in general, and one of my cousins mentioned a vacation home my parents had. She was talking about the cabin we had in the mountains. Our family loves camping and hiking, so we vacation there sometimes. Mike went quiet, but I could tell something was up. Later, when we were alone, he asked why I never told him that my family had so much money. I tried to explain that it wasn't something I thought was important, and I didn't want him to feel weird about it. Besides, he knew I was more well off than him. He just didn't know the full extent. That's when he got a bit upset and said something that caught me off guard. He mentioned how I could have helped him out with some of the things he's been struggling with financially, like gas money or when his car needed repairs a few months ago. He said that he was not asking for handouts, but he said it feels like I was hiding something from him when I could have made things easier. I told him I didn't want to make things awkward between us by offering money, and I didn't think it was my place to get involved with his finances. But now, he says it feels like I wasn't being honest, and that maybe I don't trust him enough to share that part of my life. Over the next few weeks, Mike started getting a little invasive. He looked up my house on Zillow and was shocked at the value. Mike showed me his screen and was upset that he didn't know how rich we were. He also started looking up my family members on social media sites to see what they do and how rich they are. Cousins, uncles, aunts. I got really mad and told him I didn't appreciate him digging through my family life and my finances are not his business. I asked him to stop being weird. Mike then responded he was just trying to fully understand what my lifestyle is like. But I think he's going completely off the rails. I didn't mean for it to turn into such a big deal. I was just trying to avoid making him feel uncomfortable or like he was less than me. I also believed my family finances are irrelevant. But now I'm wondering if I should have been more open from the start. AITA? Now for the update. Update. So when I made the original post, it was a few days after our argument. I wasn't going to post an update, but lots of people wanted one, and stuff actually happened. So here we go. Yesterday, I called Mike and asked if we could meet up for coffee to discuss what to do next. He agreed. As we talked, I explained my family's finances are private, and it was not my business to tell other people. The money isn't even technically mine, it's my parents'. This is why I didn't tell him. Mike didn't take this very well. He asked me how I could just watch him struggle for months and not do anything, how I pretended to feel bad for him when I didn't even understand how bad his life was. I responded that I did feel bad and I have been supportive. I tried to get him a job at my parents' grocery store, but he didn't like it, so he refused. I would always give rides to him since gas was expensive. I offered gas money whenever he did drive me, but he always refused since he wanted to pay for me. Even just emotionally, I was trying to be as supportive as I could while he was stressed. I acknowledged that I don't understand how hard his life is, because I've never lived it. But I've done my best to be supportive emotionally. Mike just dismissed all of that and said that wasn't the point. He said that for him, the money wasn't the issue. It was trust. He felt that I had kept something significant from him, and he's wondering what else I was hiding. He said that he wasn't asking for handouts, but knowing I had the means to help him, but chose not to made him feel unsupported. Mike explained he felt like there was a huge gap between us now, and he will never be equal to me. He told me there was no reason for me to hide such a big secret from him. At this point, I got angry. I corrected him, saying he was asking for handouts. I mentioned our previous conversation of how he said that I could have helped with his car and gas. I explained the money he so desperately wanted wasn't even mine, it's my family's. I told him that he wasn't entitled to the money my parents spent over 2 decades earning. I couldn't just bail him out of whatever problems he has with money. I went back to how I did support him, just not financially. I'm ashamed to admit that I did kind of lose my cool here and almost started yelling. After that, I calmed down and explained that I would never shame him for his struggles. My family never has either. They love him. We don't care about how much money someone has. We talked for some more, but I eventually told him I wanted to break up. It wasn't because he was upset I hid my wealth, but it was for digging into my family members' lives. I told him that it was extremely invasive and I couldn't forgive that, and I couldn't feel comfortable around someone who would do that. It was a breach of trust for me. Mike also told me he wanted to break up since he didn't feel comfortable in a relationship where the financial gap is so big and that our lives were just too different. We ended the conversation and parted ways. The good thing is he goes to a different school, so I won't be seeing him around. Part of me feels sad. since I do love him. It was my first relationship, and I wanted it to work. But I also feel relieved because I wasn't sure if I could take whatever Mike would do if I stayed. I really didn't like him snooping in my family's lives. I'm wondering if I made a mistake ending the relationship now, and it really sucks. Was I too harsh? I'm not even sure. I don't think I'll be dating anytime soon. I'm not too eager now. And just to be clear, I don't hate Mike. I do think that he probably just never saw money like ours, or that he was just shocked in general. And I get that he is 16, and I'm sure he will grow out of this mentality. I hope he does have a better life, but I can't continue with him. I don't like that he tried to dig in my family members' lives. I also wanted to clarify some things. A lot of people were asking about the car. Mike's car is old and used, and it was gifted to him by his uncle since he doesn't use it anymore. It's about 8 years old. Mike didn't buy the car. Mike doesn't know the true value of my parents' money. That's why he was digging around. It seems like people on Reddit thought that I was perceived middle class or poor. I never was. Mike and others knew I lived a life that was well off. I just never talked about money, that's all. Mike does not know about my parents' other assets. He started thinking we had more money than he thought because he found out about the vacation home. That's why he tried digging through my family's information. He still doesn't even know close to anything since my parents keep their assets secret. Even I don't know them. People don't start digging into you until you give them a reason to. Okay, so apparently 8 years is not old for a car. Sorry, I don't know how cars work. But it's been heavily used anyway.